War at home, women, economy, and social change. While the soldiers and volunteers were fighting overseas, the family and community that stayed were busy supporting the war effort. In this video, I'll be going through 3 main topics. First, I'll be talking about the changing role of women. Secondly, Canada's wartime economy. And third, the ever-growing demand for social change. To give some context, Canada was just coming out of the Great Depression. Supplies, goods, and even people were sent overseas to help support the cause. This created a lower supply of goods, food, and workers. According to the economic cycle, there was ultimately a high demand for female workers, which soon led to great things. Before any of this happened, middle to high-class women were simply housewives that did all wifely duties. Initially, people opposed to women working because they were afraid they would take away jobs. But because of this huge demand due to shortage of workers, people were willing to employ women temporarily. The government used propaganda to, quote, lure women into working. It was like they couldn't break free of their traditional roles, so the government resorted to designing Rosita Riveter, the strong, ideal female icon. She was portrayed in this poster as a loyal, efficient, patriotic, and strong worker, someone the home front should strive to be. It's interesting to note that half the women who initially started to work were minorities and lower class. As the war went on and more propaganda was spread, even married women from all income spectrums were involved in previously male-dominated careers. For example, welders, drillers, punch press machine operators, among others. Next, I'll talk about Canada's wartime economy. As previously stated, Canada at the time was just coming out of the Great Depression, so people were sort of wary of anything that separated them from their money. Prime Minister Mackenzie King developed the Wartime Prices and Trade Board in 1941 to help regulate the economy. The last thing he wanted was another depression and implemented a few plans to avoid inflation. The government encouraged Canadians to buy victory bonds, which were used to help finance the war. The buyer would be incentivized as bonds could be cashed for profit after the war. Next, Mackenzie King increased income tax. Then he asked the board to freeze all wages and prices to prevent inflation. And lastly, he introduced food rationing in 1942. They restricted the amount of food, especially imported ones, like tea, coffee, bread, sugar, and meat. Canadian rations were considered more generous than England and US ones. The last topic is the growing demand for social change. In addition to the changing role in women and programs that involve more government control, the Home Front was pushing for social change. The Wartime Prices and Trade Board was not only made to regulate prices, but also to reduce social unrest. It limited the power of trade unions by controlling wages. However, workers wanted higher wages and the right to bargain, which was opposite of what the board implemented. Eventually, in 1944, the federal government softened its policy and allowed workers the right to join a union, and forced employers to recognize their workers' unions. This marked a change in government intervention. Before, the government had a very hands-off approach to the economy. However, when the board was implemented, it became involved in almost every aspect of Canadian lives. Mackenzie King brought in an unemployment insurance program in 1940 called the Family Allowance Program, which ultimately was the start of the cradle-to-grave social security system, which is, well, exactly what it sounds like. It's social assistance provided by the government from birth to death. In all, World War II was the mark of a new, changed world. Women flocked the workforce, the economy stayed stable, and Prime Minister Mackenzie King allowed for social support from birth to death. Thanks for watching!